Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Welcome. All right, thanks everybody for coming this morning, and good morning. And I am very excited to announce the first bipartisan, bicameral legislative effort since the formation of the Abraham Accords Caucus. The Abraham Accords were a historic and critically important diplomatic effort completed under the Trump administration, a strong step toward peace in the Middle East. But as many of you know, Iran has continued to threaten our allies and partners in the region through the use of proxy forces targeting innocent civilians. These attacks compromise the security of our partners and the U.S. service members stationed in and around the region and pose a persistent threat to our homeland. The danger is clear and present. Just yesterday, an American consulate in Iraq was targeted by a malign drone attack. Another reminder that U.S., Israel, and our partners have an enduring mission to defend our interests and deter terror driven by our adversaries. Going forward, America's cooperation with our allies and partners in the region must evolve as violent extremists change their tactics and onboard new capabilities capable of catastrophic damage against civilian targets. As a combat veteran of the global war on terrorism, I agree with many Americans who want to see our men and women come home from the 20-year-long fight. But radical Islamic and terrorist acts can only be deterred and denied if the U.S. enables our allies and partners in the Middle East to step up and take on the threat posed by Iran and its violent extremist proxies. The Abraham Accords is the turnkey to energy, economic, travel, and even cultural cooperation and understanding between Israel and our Middle Eastern partners. But all of those goals are reliant on a commitment to collective security. The Deterring Enemy Forces and Enabling National Defenses Act, or the DEFEND Act, directs the Secretary of Defense to seek to cooperate with allies and partners to identify an architecture and acquisition approach to an integrated air and missile defense system. Our bipartisan bicameral legislation highlights the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, and other countries identified by the Secretary of Defense. This bill also requires DoD to build a strategy to implement this security cooperation and craft an assessment of the current threat environment. In addition, the bill requires a feasibility study of a fund, which would include contributions by the U.S. and all possible stakeholders participating in this effort to support an integrated defense architecture. We ultimately believe that Congress will adopt the caucus's intent for our national security leaders to address the threat from Iran and its proxies by laying the groundwork for security cooperation with our allies and our partners in the region. The Abraham Accords, the namesake of this caucus, were not completed overnight. This new bipartisan bicameral effort took the same grit and determination. So I want to thank my fellow Abraham Accords Caucus co-chairs, Senators Rosen, Lankford, and Booker, for all of their support in ensuring this bill and its intent are strongly bipartisan. I would also like to thank the majority and minority staff of the Senate Armed Services Committee who have worked closely with us on this language. I also want to thank our partners in the House Abraham Accords Caucus, Representatives McMorris-Rogers, Schneider, Trone, and Wagner, along with Representatives Bacon and Panetta, who will be championing this legislation in the House Armed Services Committee. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the strong support of all of the stakeholders and partners supporting this effort. I would like to thank ADL, AIPAC, AJC, American Jewish Congress, CUFI Action, FDD Action, Hadassah, Jewish Federations, JINSA, USIEA, and the many senior Middle East scholars from the Atlantic Council who support this bill. Your strong support is a reflection of the unity not only in both houses of Congress and across the aisle, but within the Jewish and Israel advocacy community. And right now, again, thank you so much for everyone coming out for this very important press conference. And now I will turn the podium and remarks over to my co-chair of the Abraham Accords Caucus, Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada.
Thank you, Senator Ernst, for those great opening remarks. Thank you all for being here today and for all my partners. Because today we're here to unveil a bipartisan and bicameral bill that's going to contribute to improve collective security in the Middle East. At the start of the year, we launched the Abraham Accords Caucus to build on the success of the historic agreement between Israel and its Arab neighbors, to help encourage and deepen partnerships in countries involved, and to widen the circle of peace to new countries. And right now, U.S. forces, our allies and partners in the Middle East, including participants in the Abraham Accords, well, they're facing increasingly sophisticated air and missile threats from Iran and its proxies. Iran and its proxies, they have killed countless American service members and civilians. They've killed them with rocket and missile attacks, and their armed drone capabilities are rapidly progressing. And Iran continues to pose a significant threat to Israel, to the Gulf states, and to the entire region. And so, we've come together to put forth bipartisan and bicameral legislation that would build on partnerships, both old and new, to strengthen our defenses against Iranian aggression. Our Defend Act would require the U.S. Department of Defense to work with Middle Eastern partners and allies to develop an integrated air and missile defense system that's going to protect against threats from Iran and their terrorist proxies. We are collectively stronger together. The Defend Act will leverage the unique capabilities of our partners in the region and build on the Abraham Accords, which have enabled unprecedented cooperation between our Arab and Israeli partners. Let's be clear, this bill is about protecting people, infrastructure, and our forward deployed troops from Iran's regional aggression. My colleagues and I, Democrats and Republicans from the Senate and the House, we all recognize the importance of this opportunity, the urgency of this issue. So we urge our fellow colleagues to join us in taking action and to help save lives. I thank you all for being here, and now I'd like to turn it over to our partner in the House, Congressman Brad Schneider of Illinois.
Thank you, Senator Rosen, Senator Ernst, our other senators, Lankford and Booker, as well as my colleagues in the House, David Trone and Wagner, McMorris Rogers. It is a great privilege to be here to be talking about the Defend Act. We face an increasingly dangerous world in the Middle East. It all focuses in many different ways on Iran. Today, as we speak, Iran is on the 1-yard line with its nuclear program. Today, as we speak, Iran just announced that they were ceasing allowing the IAEA to operate their cameras in their facilities. Today, as we speak, Iran just recently announced that they are installing 2 new cascades of centrifuges, more advanced centrifuges, meaning they can manufacture enriched uranium that much quicker. But it's not just about Iran's nuclear program. Iran has missile capabilities that are getting better, getting more accurate, going farther each and every day. And Iran is building its relationships with its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Syria, Houthis in Yemen, threatening our allies in the region, whether it is Israel, the Gulf countries, or any of the other nations that are willing to stand up to Iran. We must, all together, stand up to Iran. But at the same time, as has been mentioned, we have a new reality. A new reality in the region because of the Abraham Accords. 2 years ago, we stood on the White House lawn as Israel, Bahrain, UAE signed an agreement that normalized relations. In the years since then, we have seen those relations deepen and grow. We need to expand upon that. The economic and commercial and social relations between those countries are obviously important, and that's why I'm proud with my colleagues to have created here the Abraham Accords Caucus. It is critical that the U.S. leadership demonstrated 2 years ago in creating the context and opportunity to form the Abraham Accords continues today, and working with the Abraham Accords Caucus, we will do that. But for all the economic, social, and commercial aspects of the Abraham Accords and the new reality in the region, security is and must remain at the forefront. And that's why the Defend Act is and it will be so important going forward. Iran's capabilities, in particular their missile capabilities, are a threat to the entire region. Many of our allies in the region have missile defense capabilities, whether it's Patriot systems or other things, in Israel with the Iron Dome system, but they aren't integrated. We need to bring those together, and it is U.S. leadership, and it is the work that we're discussing with the Defend Act and promoting with the Defend Act that will make the difference. We can stand up to Iran. We can work to foster peace in the region by bringing the nations of the regions together. The Defend Act and U.S. leadership will make that difference, and that's why it's so important that as we stand here today, House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, standing united, saying we will work together with our allies in the region to lift up the lives, to promote the security, and to make sure that Iran can't be the threat that it wishes to be. Thank you, and with that, let me introduce my friend and colleague, David Trone.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for being here today, and thank you, Congressman Schneider, for really summing up the issue very well and the danger that's facing Israel and all the Middle East by the threat of Iran that's just growing and growing day by day. And it's not going away, so we need to step up and make a difference. So 2 years ago, we came together to recognize the importance of maintaining and bolstering goodwill in the Middle East and beyond. This impactful agreement became known as the Abraham Accords. And while the Accords remark immeasurable progress, there's still so much work to be done to protect innocent lives around the world. Now more than ever, Iran poses that threat to the security and stability of the Middle East. So today, my colleagues and I, bipartisan, bicameral, are introducing legislation to symbolize that spirit of collaboration fostered by the Abraham Accords 2 years ago. Defend Act is a critical measure to help countries defend against the Iranian threats. As the tension escalates, it's up to us to be prepared to stop this aggression. We must do now more to help these countries keep their citizens safe and forge ahead with the progress we've made to make a stronger and more united Middle East. History has been clear. We have to work side by side to achieve peaceful diplomacy we're all working towards. So I urge our congressional colleagues, international allies, to consider this effort as mission critical. I'd like to thank all of our friends on the congressional side and also the senatorial side for coming together and spearheading this bill. I'd like to hand it off now to one of our co-chairs from the Show Me State of Missouri, Ann Wagner.
Yes. Thank you, Congressman Trone. It's wonderful to be here with so many friends and colleagues from both sides of the aisle. I'm Ann Wagner. I represent Missouri's 2nd Congressional District, and I have to say that our legislation, the Defend Act, is going to ensure that the United States leads our Middle Eastern partners in the creation of this integrated air and missile defense capability to deter the aggression and an erratic Iran. I've always said that the Abraham Accords would transform the Middle East and its security, at least enabling responsible states to work together to keep each other safe from Iran's destabilizing and violent agenda. I was just in Vienna less than 2 weeks ago, meeting with the Director General of the IAEA, and I want to be clear. Iran is a clear and present threat, and we must take it seriously for our own freedom and security and for that of our Middle Eastern partners. When the Trump administration, let me just say, brokered the Abraham Accords nearly 2 years ago, we took historic steps towards peace for Israel and the people of the Middle East and the region as a whole. These relationships have proven to be enduring and fruitful on many different levels that you've heard about here this morning, contributing to the regional stability and a new sense of kinship between Israel and its neighbors. I am hopeful that what we are witnessing is the beginning of a new era of peace and prosperity in the Middle East. We all know that Iran is absolutely bent on acquiring nuclear weapons, and we must work to develop the security architecture of this new partnership between the Jewish and the Arab states. And I have to applaud my colleagues on both sides of the aisles. The Abraham Accords Caucus that's come together at the first of the year has also already had a big win, as was just signed into law in the spring, the Israel Normalization Act. So this is a caucus. This is a movement. This is a bringing about peace and prosperity in the Middle East between our Jewish and Arab partners that is absolutely making a difference today. And the Defend Act will build on that. So I want to thank my colleagues and tell you what a pleasure it is for me to also co-lead this bipartisan, this bicameral legislation, and stand behind in full-throated support of the Abraham Accords. And I know that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and in both the House and the Senate will stand with us for the Defend Act and as we move forward with the Abraham Accords. I thank you, and I think I may have been doing cleanup here today. So one more? We've got one more? Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jimmy Panetta. I represent the Central Coast of California in the 20th Congressional District. Let me start off by thanking Senators Ernst and Rosen, and of course my colleagues, Congresswoman Wagner, Congressman Trone, and Congressman Schneider, as well as Congressman Bacon. Look, I think as we realize as the administration works to revive the JCPOA from the dead, Iran continues to not only bolster its breakout time to build a nuclear weapon, but it is also doubling down on its ballistic missile program, as well as its regional troublemaking in the Middle East. This includes attacks on Saudi Arabia oil fields with drones and cruise missiles, attacks on the United Arab Emirates with missiles and drones, and attacks on our American troops with cruise missiles. It's gotten so bad that one senior American military source has said, we no longer have air superiority in the region. The Defend Act of 2022 seeks to change that. By working with our partners in the region, the intent of the bill is to secure the skies through an integrated air and missile defense capability that protects our partners from cruise missiles, from rocket attacks, from UAVs, and from manned systems that are used by Iran and its proxy forces. It would protect our partners in the region by building off the existing partnership of the Abraham Accords, that foundational relationship that is now in place. Look, we understand that it is the obligation of this administration to continue to negotiate with Iran, but it's Congress's obligation to defend our partners in the region. It's the United States' obligation to defend our partners in the region from Iranian aggression by ensuring that the sky is safe. We will do that with the Defend Act of 2022, and I look forward to working with my colleague Don Bacon on the Armed Services Committee to make sure that it's included as we go forward with the National Defense Authorization Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. We do expect Senator Lankford to join us at any moment. We'll go ahead and get started with questions if you have questions, and then if Senator Lankford joins us, then we will break and allow him a few moments of comments as well. So yes, thank you.
As you mentioned, Saudi Arabia and Iraq have been top targets as well of Iranian proxies and Iranian attacks. But they're obviously not part of the Abraham Accords. And in fact, Iraq has recently passed legislation criminalizing those. So, I mean, do you guys see them as potential to bring those two countries into this architecture? And if so, how?
Yes, absolutely. And Iraq is one of those targeted countries as well, and we understand they are not part of the Abraham Accords, but it is extremely important that we continue the discussions with them as well as wrap them into this agreement as part of the Defend Act. We have to continue those conversations with them. We just saw the attack in Erbil yesterday, so it's important. How we move forward on this, it depends upon all of our countries. But certainly we don't want to discount them. We really do want them to be part of this integrated system. It is about our own national security as well. So, thank you. Other questions? Y'all are great. Well, I am very excited that we are working in a bipartisan, bicameral fashion. The Defend Act, we intend to push it along through the House and the Senate, perhaps through the National Defense Authorization. If not through that avenue, we will find another avenue we feel is very important for our friends and allies in the region, as well as to our own national security here in the United States. Yes, yes, sir. JCPOA is not a sticking point. You're absolutely correct, and there are a number of folks that might be for it. I don't support a new JCPOA, but regardless of whether we're for or against the JCPOA, we do think that the Defend Act is the right way to move forward because it is about securing. Yeah, it is and that's a good point. It is an entirely separate movement. So again, it is about an integrated defense system, and we need our partners and our allies, whether they're part of the Abraham Accords or not, engaging in this collective effort. Another one, yes, go ahead.
With regard to Saudi Arabia, there's been back and forth, especially in the past couple of weeks actually, over how this administration has been approaching Saudi Arabia. Do you all want to see this administration sort of reset relations with Saudi Arabia and sort of try and move on to a more stable footing? And are you, okay with sort of moving forward with that, even if it means, as some people have said, giving them a bit of a pass on some of their human rights issues, including democracy?
Yeah, I will answer that and then open to my colleagues as well if they would like to respond. In my opinion, I do think it is important that our president is engaging with Saudi Arabia. We know that there have been human rights abuses, and just as the obvious you stated, but in order for that to change, we have to have dialogue. So what that relationship continues to look like and develop is up to our countries again. But we have to have that dialogue. If we're not speaking with Saudi Arabia, we can't expect things to change. So I think it's important that we wrap them into this and that our president continue to work through these issues, have those very uncomfortable conversations. But again, it is about security in the region, pushing back against Iran, and thus securing ourselves against Iran as well. And I'll open up to my colleagues if they would like to answer.
Well, and always remembering that the key to the Abraham Accords and this new relationship that was fostered through the last administration is really about recognizing between Arab and Jewish states that Iran is the common threat. There have been other wonderful things that have come from this in terms of economic stability, exchanges, partnerships, energy. Any dialogue is important and I think can be very, very fruitful. But what is unique about this relationship is that at last the Arab states are recognizing Iran and its proxies are the common threat. And we hope that Saudi Arabia will join with us in that regard. It was historic when UAE and Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, and others signed up to join this partnership. So we look forward to its growth and continuation.
Great. we will go ahead and wrap up. I'm sure that Senator Lankford will push out some information later, but we want to thank you for coming out today. And as you've noticed, a lot of school groups have been coming by as we're here in the swamp, and I think it's important that we point out, not just to all of you that are attending in the media, but for all of the groups that have come out to witness this today, is that thank you guys, that this is a bipartisan and bicameral effort. And I think it's important that when it comes to security cooperation, we have an incredible message as the United States of America, that we all stand united, regardless of party, regardless of the body of Congress, that we do come together when it benefits our American citizens. So thank you all very much for coming together today. We appreciate the attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Everybody, take care. Have a good break.